Hi, it's Ra, Rishikavi Raghudas, here again for Ra's weekly astrological forecast. Okay, this is for the week of June 11th through the 18th. That's Monday to Monday, 2018. Here we go. I always give a key phrase for the week, and this week's key phrase is think and dream. The reason for that is the overall influence of the week comes from the Neptune station. Neptune being very slow and about to slow down and station, turn a retrograde next Monday. So this whole week is flavored with a dreamy Neptunian energy. And at the same time, the sun is in the sign of Gemini, which rules the rational mind and thinking. So the whole key phrase for this week, think and dream. So we'll go through the week and we'll tell you how it looks. Okay, we've mentioned that the sun is in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury. And Mercury has also been very close to the sun, is now moving off from that conjunction. But through Tuesday night, both the sun and its ruling planet, Gemini, sun in Gemini, and the ruling planet of Gemini, Mercury, are both in the sign of Gemini, which makes the early part of the week somewhat frenetic, very idea-oriented, and just kind of very, very busy. And that will shift as we go through the week. But the major thing happening this week is the new moon in Gemini. So the new moon is a seed point, and the new moon occurs on Wednesday. And what this means is that it's a very good time to start Gemini-flavored projects. Now, what does that mean? Gemini, as we've said, rules the rational mind, the intelligence, the way we think. So it's a very good time for new ideas and communications about those new ideas. Maybe time to buy a new phone, a new computer, things to do with communications. Even a new car, a form of transportation of some sort, would be very good under this type of energy. Socializing picks up considerably because people like to chat to each other. But the negative side of this is it can be a real frazzle time where your brain's just going a mile a minute. There's all this frenetic activity, and it can just be all too much. So one of the keynotes of this week is also think before you talk. It would be very easy to just go off half-cocked with a lot of crazy ideas this week. Think first. But as we're saying, the whole idea is that this is a great time to put new ideas and Gemini-flavored things into your life. So think ahead. What do you want to manifest in terms of your new ideas? Perhaps for new projects in your life. On Wednesday, this is the time to think it out and project ahead. That's the big news for the week, is the new moon in Gemini. But there are smaller things which add flavor to the week. For one thing, we've mentioned that the ruling planet of Gemini, which is Mercury, is moving from its home sign of Gemini on Wednesday, the day of the new moon, into Cancer. Now, what this does is it sort of changes the thinking flavor of the week. It's more emotional, and it's more inclined to express feelings rather than just simple thoughts. So it can be a little moody. You know, you might get into a strange emotional funk if you're not careful. Thoughts can turn to home and family and just how you're feeling. Well, that's not so bad, but it tends to turn the emotional energy toward security and emotional focus. So it's actually good for things that make you feel good. Mercury rules the hands, and it's one of those times where you can be real crafty, get your hands into things, make real crafts. It's good for connecting with people on an emotional level. So the latter part of the week is all to do with how you're connecting. Now, at the same time, around the new moon, Venus, the sign of love, affection, and harmony and the arts, goes into Leo, the sign of showbiz, baby. So this is one of those moments where flamboyance counts. This is not a time to hold back in terms of your feelings. Let it all go. Let it flow. Leo rules the heart, and Gemini is love. So it's actually a very romantic time coming up here in the latter part of this week, especially as we get to that Neptune station over the weekend. So what's not to like about this? Be as flamboyant as you like. Express your heart. Show your style. You can even wear purple if you like. Now, as Venus moves into the sign of Leo, it makes a square, a 90-degree angle to Uranus, the planet of sudden change, sometimes chaos, as we like to say, freedom from the known, which has just entered the sign of Taurus, which doesn't like change at all. We've mentioned in previous forecasts that this is a bit of a disruptive energy when it comes to your physical life, life on the earth. You can expect all kinds of unexpected things happening. But because Venus is the ruling sign of Taurus, when it makes a hard angle to that disruptive planet Uranus in the sign of Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, we can expect a lot of Venusian energy, and frankly, it can be very flirty, very exciting, a good time to go out and meet people and connect with new ideas that have got a little oomph behind them. So have fun in the latter part of this week. Now, the downside of that is it can lead to breakups. You have to be very flexible. You have to be prepared for new and exciting things to come into your life, because if you just want to sit there and go, you know, I'm totally comfortable now and I don't want anything to change, guess what? This is one of those weeks where things certainly will change. Now, at the same time that all of this is going on, we have Mars, which is the planet of assertion, aggression, sometimes conflict. It rules our personal ego and our body, our action-oriented self. Well, Mars has been in the sign of Aquarius here lately, and it also is slowing down because it will turn retrograde toward the end of June. But right now, it's beginning to slow down, and what we call the transiting south node, which is the karmic release point, is also in the sign of Aquarius. And so they are moving into a conjunction this week. The north node of the moon is a mathematical point in the sky where the Earth's orbit intersects with that of the moon, and it is called the Dharma point, what we're moving toward. The opposite of that, the south node, which is what Mars is conjunct, is the karma point, our comfort zones, what we're familiar with, maybe what we don't want to change. And maybe because we don't want to change, we get into difficulties, because life is about change. Well, guess what? Mars conjuncts the south node just as this summit is taking place in Singapore with the leader of North Korea and President Trump. So what can we expect from this? Trump does have relatively positive energies, but the overall influence of the week is tough. So I would expect the most to come out of this summit is to say, let's keep talking. If an agreement is made, I'll be very surprised. I'll be happy, but surprised, because the energy of the week is no change. It is also the case that you can get into trouble because of the intransigence. So what I'd like to encourage people to do on a personal level is be more flexible. Don't just take a stand. We saw Trump do that at the G7 summit here, and we see all the leaders looking over the table at him going, are you going to change or what? And Trump is going, not a chance. So this can be troublesome. So be careful that you don't wall yourself in just to a certain position this week. Okay, now there are some benevolent influences going on. We're still within the orb of the lovely Jupiter trine Neptune, which is very spiritual, very soft energy, and harmonious. That's beginning to move off, but we're still within orb of that, so there's a sort of a lingering afterglow to all of that, which we can use to our advantage this week. I mentioned Neptune because as we get closer to the weekend, we're going to feel much more dreamy. The negative aspect of that is illusory. Sometimes we can't tell what's real and what is not, because that's what Neptune rules. Dreams, spirituality, higher ideals, and on the negative side of that, illusions, delusions, confusions. When it turns retrograde, when it makes its station and just sort of stops from our perspective in the sky, this is a time often of great confusion. This happens early next week. Monday is when Neptune makes its station, turns retrograde. So this whole week is flavored by this Neptunian energy. We have to tell what's real from what's not, and it's not an easy task this week. That's why I'm saying your personal dreams, go for it, dream as much as you can, but be careful that you're not deluding yourself this week. We've mentioned that there are 3 planets in Earth signs. We've said this before in previous forecasts. Saturn and Pluto are in the sign of Capricorn, which rules government and big business, and it's a pretty tough energy, and these guys will stay there until 2020. So we have actually a good ground for manifestation with all that Earth energy. Uranus, as we've said, has now moved into Taurus, and so that makes a nice trine or a flowing angle, at least by sign, to the Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. What this means for this week is we still have a lot of grounded energy in order to manifest our dreams. So again, the keynote, think and dream. Think before you dream big enough to expand your thinking. And because this is, shall we say, something of a romantic week coming up, let me finish here by quoting from another of my love poems called Inscription of the Heart. And here's that little quotation from that. Rather than etching emotions in earth, let me inscribe these sayings in your heart by means of deeds that prove my love's worth and by endless tenderness on my part. Though my words conceal my depth as a lover, my poetry of heart is yours to discover. Open your heart this week. This is Ra, thanking you. I'll see you next week.